Guys, there's a proposed bill, and that is AB 742, and I've got a very unique opportunity to talk to someone who, a guest that we've never had on our show, and that is an actual politician, a policy maker, a legal person who is elected by us, and it is Senator Seyarto. And I want to talk, first of all, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I'm sure you've got much more important things to do than talk to me and dog lovers, but thank you for being here.
I
Um,
appreciate that. I appreciate being given the opportunity to talk on the subject.
Yeah, I think it's a very important topic. We've had a lot of people on. Mike Reaver, an amazing, runs the police school for many, many, many police departments. Michael Gooseby, who is an amazing canine officer for the LAPD. We've had so many other people coming up as well. What I want to address with you, Senator, is the importance of laws being passed in our country, especially now in such a volatile time, that can very negatively affect the safety of our citizens. And I know you're big on safety. I know that's one of your big things. I did Google you a little bit before we started talking. Can you just give me your knee-jerk reaction when you saw this bill coming about?
Well, naturally, I was a little bit alarmed. Being up here for 2 years in the Assembly, I've seen a lot of public safety bills that have the effect of stripping police officers of more and more tools that help them do their job, while at the same time we're hearing a lot of outcry about excessive force and lethal force. And so when you take away less than lethal means of force and leave officers to doing jobs that are extremely dangerous at times, um, you're going to wind up having more of those type of incidents than less.
Hmm.
And this police dog issue struck me especially as onerous in that effect because canines have the ability to do things that humans don't. Their olfactory senses are much better than any other animals out there, and certainly better than our eyesight and our ear sight. And so they're able to do things and find people and do some of these things to bring people into custody that would be really dangerous for both the officer and the person that they're looking for otherwise. And
Yeah,
so
and that's
that was
such an important piece, right? That what you just said there, Senator, is that the police officer has an ability with this dog to increase the safety of the potential suspect by using a police dog.
right. Yeah, that's true. And a lot of times if a suspect is hiding in the bushes, while it
Mhm.
may take a police officer longer to find that suspect, and the surprise factor when they do for both the suspect and the police officer can lead to a lethal confrontation. Whereas a lot of times just the threat that the dog is out will get somebody, flush them out, and they'll just
Mhm.
give up. A lot of people are deathly afraid of dogs,
Yeah.
especially these dogs, and you can't hide from them, and you can't run from them very far. They're
Hmm.
a lot faster than we are.
So there's two sides to this equation that I've been trying to stress over and over in my podcast and in my talks on this. One is the safety for the police officers and the potential suspects, but also in areas where this Corey Jackson is an assemblyman. I had heard specifically from that area of dogs preventing crimes and protecting innocent people. And I'm curious, you as a lawmaker and as a person who really cares about safety, this bill was written, in my opinion, in very flaming language, like saying that this is a throwback to racist times. And I take issue with that. As a person who supports police and police canines throughout my entire career, can we talk about that a little bit? Is that a way that people try to get bills passed when there's no meat behind them?
Well, certainly that is one of the methodologies, especially in these days and times, is
Hmm.
to tie them to something that's unpleasant, an
Sure.
unpleasant history or something like that. And but the reality is, uh, these dogs are trained.
Hmm.
This is not back in the day.
Right.
of the days of slavery and where some of those issues may be being tied to.
Hmm.
Uh, this is about law enforcement and trying to create a civil society in today's world. And I think police dogs, if people haven't worked around them or seen them in action, I think they would see the value that police dogs bring,
Hmm.
and not diminish their capabilities out there, because they do make it safer. They make it safer for the officer, and they make it safer for the person that they may be trying to search out or apprehend.
And that's one of the issues I took with the bill, because immediately when you read it, you say, "Oh my God, of course nobody wants, to appear racist or something like that." And that's when I read through it and I thought, God, what a crock of garbage, because the people that are being protected in these neighborhoods where these police dogs are deployed are people in underserved communities, people of color, black, brown people who really want those police dogs there to protect them. It's the criminals who don't want them.
Right. Well, that's the thing is, and that's what you'll find with a lot of laws, is
Mm.
the criminal element likes to fight against the laws that are going to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Um, in my opinion, I don't care what your race is, your neighborhood, your socioeconomic group, or whatever. If you find yourself on the business end of a police dog, you've
Yeah.
kind of screwed up already,
Right.
and it's up to you to mitigate that, because
Yeah.
the dogs are trained, the owners are trained to use them correctly,
Hmm.
and in those instances where a dog makes a mistake, there are remedies for that, and that
Hmm.
we have a legal system that addresses that.
Yep.
And so we don't need a law that makes it illegal for them to use this valuable tool
Hmm.
to kind of de-escalate a situation before it even starts.
Right.
And dogs are, in my experience, I had many years in the fire service, 35 years to be exact, and 23 of those were working in areas that had these challenges. And I much rather treat a dog bite than a bullet wound. And many times you didn't even have to do that, because
Sure.
just the announcement that we are going to release the dog will get them to give themselves up. And
Yeah.
in fact, I think in one instance, I had a quote from one person that said, out of 699 suspects in this one year, out of that year, 693 gave up.
Sure.
So they don't leave the dog a whole lot of
Right.
room to go out and do all this damage.
Yeah.
But the people that do have those confrontations, yes, there are sometimes there are unfortunate incidents out there, but there are also unfortunate incidents with all kinds of dogs out there.
We.
But when you're in this situation, the best thing for people to do is obey,
Mhm.
and then nothing happens.
Well, you said something really important. Two things I'm taking away from this conversation I think are really important for people to hear. One is it's a lot less lethal if this dog is accidentally, if this quote unquote weapon is accidentally used or is accidentally abused. It's much better. There's a less consequential damage, collateral damage, I should say, than a gunshot wound. And the second piece, I think it's really important, and I didn't even think of this. We do have laws. If a police officer were to act outside of his jurisdiction, or what he should be doing, or is abusing the law, we have laws that would right this wrong, but it happens so rarely that, I mean,
Right.
people say, why is it news? Because it's news. It's something that's very abnormal, of the thousands and thousands of call that these amazing, police officers go on to keep our neighborhood safe. So you say that you would obviously stand for that a person should be prosecuted if they used it incorrectly.
Right, and they do. They get sued. They get prosecuted,
Mm-hmm.
and so in essence, the problem that they're trying to address is already addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
what their concern is that it happened in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But that goes back to any incident where you have law enforcement involved. Is why are they there, and how did it happen? And
Yeah.
generally, police dogs, any dog bite, they can be severe. There can be some severe dog bites out there from uncontrolled dogs.
Hmm.
But the more you fight, the worse that gets.
Yeah.
And so there's culpability when you're involved in that, and almost probably 99% of the cases, it is not just an innocent person that somehow got attacked by the dog. There are those cases out there, but those people usually get restitution for what happens to them.
Sure. Senator, you and I are very pro-police. I make no qualms about that, and I never, ever hide it. I'm very proud of our police officers, our first responders. Have you ever gone along on a police ride-along with a police canine?
I haven't had the opportunity to do that in person, but I know in my travels as a paramedic in the 1980s and 90s in the fire service, the police department there had a strong canine program, and so I've worked alongside them on incidents where we're not quite sure where if we have a shooting or something, we don't know if there's anybody else out there. They can use them to clear the scene quickly so we can get to treating people and things like that. And I've never had an adverse incident other than somebody who did not heed the warning and hid, and then got found by a dog, and then when they tried to fight, the dog bit them.
Sure.
And we treated that. But like I said, I'd much rather treat that than a bullet wound. And,
so as a paramedic, you've responded to both shots fired and dogs biting. Is there a clear difference? I mean, is it, as a paramedic and a fire person, would you say
pretty
that
much, pretty much one, you wash it down with saline and then wrap a bandage on it and have the police officers, after they arrest the person, stop by the medical facility to get a tetanus shot. The bullet wound is much different. That's a whole lot more invasive, and the outcomes are usually not as positive.
So it seems to me that police departments are actually putting forth a lot of finances, a lot of training, and a lot of efforts to protect potential criminals before they're arrested by putting police dogs out there, from what you're saying.
Right. The less than lethal approaches to trying to apprehend or stop a suspect in whatever the crime is, those are things that they tried to go through. And if you have 5 of those methods before you get to the lethal method, the one that winds up in the shooting, and you take 4 of those away, it doesn't leave you much room.
Right.
And that's my concern, is over the years I've seen those eroded. And in terms of crowd control and things like that also, because if a police officer is out where there is a protest, but then it turns into a riot, the dog being there and people knowing that the dog could be released on them is enough to keep them from doing more property damage to what they're doing, or to disperse and peacefully without anybody getting hurt. And so taking that tool away is to me that's not a very good thing to do.
One other thing I want to ask you about is, I'm very unfamiliar with how the legal system works, except that I go vote, and sometimes who I vote for wins in California. A lot of times they don't. Here's a question: how does this work? So this assemblyman, Mr. Corey Jackson, proposes this bill to the assembly, right? And then what happens now? I mean, how does it get passed? How does it get voted on? This is something I think a lot of viewers would be really fascinated to know. He proposed a law. Is it just boom, gavels down, this is now the law?
All right. Well, what it does is it goes to an initial committee that decides where the bill goes to be heard. We have several committees. We'll have a public safety committee, which is where something like this would go. We have housing, we have, environmental, we have energy, we have all kinds of committees. And in each of those committees sits a number of legislators. And because California is California, there's usually much more legislators of one variety than the other. And then those bills are heard. Like in this case, this bill would go to the Public Safety Committee. And then the Public Safety Committee will hear it. And if they want to pass it out of public safety, then they'd have to get enough votes to do that. And then that bill would be passed along to whatever the next, either the committee is, or it could go directly to the floor after that if it was only referred to one committee. So once it goes to the floor in the assembly, they vote on it. They take it up and they vote on it. They have to get 41 votes. If they get 41 votes, then it passes out of the assembly, and we try to do all that before the summer break. And then once it gets out of there, it goes to the other side, the Senate side, in this case. And then our public safety would hear that bill. And if they passed it along, fine, it goes. If they don't pass it out of public safety, it dies. If it has an element that costs money, it would go to appropriations, where it can either be they can appropriate the bill and pass it out of appropriations, or it can die there also. And then it goes to the floor. And in the assembly, or in the Senate, we have 40 senators, so you need 21 votes. If it doesn't get its 21 votes, it can die on the floor. So there's plenty of opportunities for us to debate this bill and make it go away if enough people understand the repercussions of this and understand what this means to our officers out there, and also to people that do things wrong and are going to be held accountable. We want to keep them safe also.
The safety of our communities. I think that's something that's so often overlooked. I'm pro-police, but I'm also pro-people. And, Michael Gooseby said, he goes, I'm pro-police, but I'm also pro-black. I mean, he's a black man. So it has nothing to do with the race. But I think when it's fed to us like this, the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, I don't want to be seen as a racist. Of course, I'm for this. But it's not. It's really, I find it a racist bill the other way, because it's hurting people in these communities. And that really gravely concerns me, because I have friends that I work out with at the gym that live in those neighborhoods that are at danger when there isn't a prominent police presence.
Right, and that's a big concern basically in California right now, is the direction our public safety is going seems to be encouraging more crime and less public safety than creating a safe communities for all of us. And so we're dealing with that now. We're dealing with it. Our ridership is down on like our mass transit. It's way down because people are afraid.
Sure.
And if we don't get a grip on this, it's going to have a detrimental effect on every facet of our lives in California.
What are you seeing in government now, in elected officials? Because the whole rah-rah was defund the police, do this, do that. Are we seeing a shift now where people actually want to be safe again and see the lunacy of that movement, or not yet?
Well, like every issue, there is a middle ground where there are issues that need to be addressed. Mm-hmm. But when you go too far in addressing those, and you allow more radical ideas to be the policy, once those things are implemented, and then you start seeing the consequences of that, that's when you start having the pushback from people. Mm-hmm. Right now, we had, Prop 57 and 47 and Prop 109 that made some realignment for prisons. Mm-hmm. Well, that realignment is causing more people to be out of prison, right, which means they're out on the street. And a lot of those it correlates to some of our increase in crimes, and then not just misdemeanor and petty crimes. I'm talking about serious crimes.
Violent crimes.
And so people are starting to see the effects of this. And once they see that effect, then they want us to try and fix this. And it took a little bit for them to unfix it, and it'll take a little bit for us to fix it. But this type of bills are helpful in that respect.
Yeah, is there hope? I mean, because I love California. I've been here almost 40 years, and I just see the decline. And I see people all the time moving to Texas, moving to Tennessee. I moved to Tennessee for 2 years. The safety factor, I mean, is something that's very concerning to me. I have a wife. I mean, I have a mother who lives, in Chino Hills. I'm worried about my family and my friends' safety. And is it something that in politics people are starting to align themselves more with? Like when you see a bill like this, like let's get rid of police dogs, are people on both sides of the aisle saying, hey, we need to keep our state safe and our residents and our people safe?
Right. Well, we have less people that are moderate, although we do have moderate people on both the Republican and Democrat side.
Of course.
The problem is, especially on the Democrat side, there's a more what they call the left wing faction, the more
Mm-hmm.
progressive folks,
Mm-hmm.
and they're more there are a lot of people that are kind of more activist driven.
Yeah.
And they all have their different areas where they want to be activists,
Yeah.
and so they have the numbers to be able to rule the day. And so, that's what's happening up here right now is there's not enough diversity of thought put into our policies. And therefore, if somebody has what we might consider a very crazy idea,
Mm-hmm.
those somehow get through, while other ideas that are pretty, would probably be pretty helpful for people, wind up not getting through, not getting killed, things that enhance public safety.
Yeah.
My good friend Bill Asaley, the Assembly member Asaley, had a bill the other day, and that one died in committee. And it's those kind of things that we see that are frustrating
Yeah.
to just everybody, and until people recognize that that's the imbalance we have in California, and the voters decide, hey, you know what, we're going to not vote like this, and we're going to start voting for people that put thought into what we're doing and not be such activists. Let's
Right.
solve problems and not be activists,
Yeah. So where
because this
where does
is
this
a bad
where
place
does
to do
oh,
that.
sorry, I agree with you on that, by the way. And I can vote for a Democrat or a Republican. I just want to know, where is your heart? Where is your core? Where do you place this bill, AB 742, on the wacko scale? Like, is it like really off the charts from things you've seen, or is it kind of like just okay, somewhat normal for people?
Yeah, I wouldn't characterize bills as wacko bills,
Oh, sorry.
but what I do, I characterize them as more of an extreme bill,
Yeah.
and it's activist driven.
Hmm.
There's a specific purpose that this person wants to drive home,
Hmm.
and therefore their legislation is going to be very pro that type of legislation.
Yeah.
So it's a type of legislation that concerns me most, because it is, to me, a little extreme.
So you're concerned that this does have a chance of maybe passing, the way you're seeing the government currently working?
You know what? It really depends on the leadership of the party,
Hmm.
whether they rally enough people to say, hey, you know what, we want this to pass.
Hmm.
And there is a strong, it might pass right out of public safety in the assembly. And so we'll see.
Wow.
But it's kind of hard to predict. Sometimes they even, the leadership will look at that and say, yeah, this is pushing the envelope a little too far, and we're
Good.
going to fall out of disfavor. We're going to fall into disfavor if
Right.
we get behind this. And so, they may not want to support that bill a lot.
Gotcha.
We'll
So,
see. Yeah.
so in wrapping up our conversation, tell me what people, and this obviously only apply to California people, what can people who are concerned about the safety of citizens and the ability for police to do their work to protect our state and our community, what can the average person watching this podcast do to help this be defeated?
Well, one of the things they can do is keep an eye on the legislation, especially public safety legislation that is going through, because everybody has the capability. Anybody who has a computer can get onto the California State Assembly website or the California State Senate website and follow along during these public safety and other hearings, any hearing that they might be interested in. Those are broadcast, so they're on the web. So we're able
Okay.
to watch those. And when you see assembly members or senators that are making votes that concern somebody, they can email them, they can call their office, they can do a lot of things to be able to communicate what their issue is. And because sometimes if they don't hear anything, they think, oh, well, it's just, everybody's good with it. And but if they hear an outcry from lots and lots of people, they get the idea that this isn't that popular of an idea, and therefore it might be politically difficult for them to keep pushing that through, because ultimately what a lot of people are concerned about is that it costs them the election the next time around.
Right.
So which is kind of sad, but that's the nature of the business, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put links in the video description and reach out to Californians who care about safety, who care about our state, who care about our police, to make their voices heard. And I think that's great advice, that they can actually watch these hearings on the floor and know what's going on, and know that these people who they're electing, what are they doing? Are they acting in the best interest of our voters?
Yeah, and one more thing on those hearings, they actually do have the ability to call in. And of course, by the time they call in, they don't let them, rattle off 2 minutes of whatever. Right. They let them call in and say, hey, I oppose this legislation. My name is so-and-so, and I'm from such and such. And then that's it. And they say, I oppose. Or if they're from an organization, they do that. So they'll give them the call-in numbers, and they can participate that way as well.
Well, now I had no idea of that. I've been here for a long time. That's actually a process and they can find that on the website.
Yes.
Okay.
And when they're listening to the thing, they'll give them the number and all of that. They can get hooked right in and they can participate.
I think people need to get involved. I think people who have, values, who care about things, need to make their voices heard, because a lot of times, we vote and we say, oh, God, it didn't go our way and whatever, and then we sulk about it. But being active and making your voice heard, and, as I've done with this, and then I connected with you, and I'm so thankful for you to take this time. You're the first politician I've ever interviewed. I hope I did okay. But it was a really great chat. Thank you for your service. Thank you for caring about our policemen, and also for caring about, most importantly, our people in this state, and making it a better place. And hopefully it'll get back to the golden state that it once was.
And I can say thank you back for all of those things as well, because what you're doing is a valuable service. You're letting people hear about some of these issues and some of the things they can do to be more vocal and participate in letting their desires and wishes be known.
Yeah, well, God bless our great state, and God bless you, Senator. Thank you very, very much.
All right. Thank you, sir.